Hello, everybody, and welcome to Performing Your Tale. This is Marion Roach Smith, and we're going to be together for an hour today, having one of our second in the series of Let Me Introduce You. So I would love to know that you're out there. I would love you to find the Go to Webinar box, and if you the questions box, and if you would please just tell me you can see the screen. You're not going to see us, see the screen and hear the voice. Chris, thank you. That's fabulous. I knew it would be you first, Chris. That's great. All right, we've got you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you. That's so helpful. So everybody's still piling in the door. I mean, I can see it in the numbers. They're piling in. They're getting stuck in the doorway. So I'm going to keep yammering for a moment while we let them in. And then I'm going to be introducing you in a second to my guest today. And it's wonderful to have you here, everybody. So just sit down, get relaxed, sit back, relax. You're going to, if we've set this up right, you should be getting a recording of this tomorrow, but we'll see if we've toggled all the toggles correctly. I'm still new to this, and I hope that's going to work out right. But I think, let's see, that looks like good. It looks like everybody has shoved their way through the front door. So we're going to the virtual front door. So I'm gonna start up by talking to you about what we're gonna do here. I'm Marion Roach Smith, and as I said, and this is a production of the Memoir Project, where you can receive instruction on how to write memoir. I teach everything from entry-level classes on how to write memoir through master classes. There are classes on the personal essay and the op-ed and everything you can possibly want at marionroach.com. But here is a very special thing I'm doing right now, which is this idea of a let me introduce you. I want to introduce you to people I think you should meet who can further your careers. And that means we're going to expose you in the next year to people who are book producers and book editors. And we introduced you last month to a stand-up comic, Ross Bennett, who did a beautiful job and talk to us about what it's like to take your life and turn it into stand-up comedy. So it's free, it's fun, and why not? You have been such a loyal audience. You are such a loyal audience that it's time for me to give it back. And that's what this project is based in, is just introducing you to people. And the reason specifically we're doing this is because these are not skills that I have. I'm not a live storytelling person. I'm not a stand-up comic. I'm not a book promoter. I'm not a book editor. Well, I am a book editor, but not one in mass market. And so I'm very excited to share the people I know with you. And that's what this series is. So today you're going to meet one of my favorite people on the planet. You're going to meet Tricia Rose Burt, and I am going to introduce you to her now. Hi, Tricia.
Hey, Marion.
It's a lovely thing to spend this time with you at noon Eastern Daylight Time today. Thank you for agreeing to this. This is so generous of you.
Yeah, no, there's no way. There's nothing I like better than to talk about stories. So this is not hard work for me. I'm delighted to be here.
And two redheads, this could bring down the internet. I don't know, just saying. Between your southern cackle and my dirty laugh, it could really bring down the internet. I don't know, but I'm gonna let's talk about who you are here. You are many wonderful things: a multimedia artist, a story consultant, a creative coach. I love your personal motto: the riskiest thing you can do is play it safe. And that led you to take a huge chance in December 2010 to get on stage at the MOTH Slam at New York City's Bitter End, a place where I spent some of my misspent youth, I have to say. But since that first appearance, you've appeared in the MOTH main stage numerous times, and your stories have been featured on the MOTH Radio Hour and the MOTH podcast. And it's really exciting. You've got one coming up this summer, How Not to Feel Crazy. You're an instructor for MOTHworks. They're a corporate training arm where you're teaching executives in America's top institutions how to tell first-person narrative stories. And you've told stories all over the place. But your one-woman show, How to Draw a Naked Man, was selected for the 15th annual New York International Fringe Festival. And I just love that. And I love that it's selected for New York City's United Solo Theater Festival. And you're launching a podcast, No Time to Be Timid. So welcome, Tricia. It's just an honor to have such talent here with us today. And tell us a little bit, just set up a little bit for us what you're thinking about right now as you work on, what's coming up for you, the podcast, the story. Just give everybody a little background on you, and then we'll tell them what we're going to do here today.
I mean, and Marion, again, I'm just so tickled to be here. Thank you so much. And I mean, my life has not been linear. There's not been like a career that actually just. I had a friend of mine say she hasn't had a career, she's had a careen, and it's which I think is just so brilliant. And I ended up. I mean, I got into this basically because I was a visual artist and the market crashed and nobody was buying artwork anymore. No one was hiring consultants, which is what I'd been for years. And I thought, well, I know I'll just go into performance because that's so lucrative. Let's do that. But I ended up writing this one woman show about this journey from, being a corporate consultant and becoming an artist. And it resonated with a lot of people. But I got into this specific sort of areas because live theater is very expensive, as you know, even if it's just one person. And an executive director of a theater down in Tampa said, this is a great show, but you really ought to write a book so you can
Mm,
get people into the seats. And I'm like, well, that just takes too long to write a book. What else can I do here? And friends of mine up the street in this little tiny New Hampshire town I live in said, you really ought to go do the MOTH. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
mm,
And it was just the right thing at the right time. I mean, I just thought, well, it was very, very scary for me to do.
mhm,
It also seemed like a lot scarier not to do it.
mhm.
And, that's when I say the riskiest thing I can do is play it safe, is every time I play it safe, it comes back and bites me in the bottom. So,
Yep. Yeah.
it was just it just the thing, it just came together for me to be on that stage. And that has become one of the most important creative relationships in my life and opened up a lot of doors for me. But it was a scary thing to do. But what's interesting, just and all of us know this as artists and writers, the story that they're airing for me in May, actually, or June, is a story I told on their stage in June of 2013.
Hmm.
And they just said, hey, we want to run it this year. I'm like, have at it. So whatever work you're working on, nothing is wasted. It shows up again. So
That's a wonderful lesson. And there's so many great lessons in there, Tricia. And I hope you all heard that. Those of you who are wondering if you're allowed to pivot from being a business consultant to being an artist to being a storyteller, the answer was just told to you. Yes, you are able to pivot. And while it isn't easy, it is going to be scary. It is, as you can hear in her voice, a thrilling adventure that has taken her places she never expected from
oh
her,
yeah, man.
good
Yeah.
good Southern childhood upbringing. We have put out before by the way, for all of you, before you showed up here today, you got a bunch of emails that put in within that email was a link to her, I think, just a world famous story. And so I hope you had a chance to watch that. And you will get at the end of this a link to a wonderful packet that Tricia has put together for you. And I'll have her explain that later. So, because I'm getting questions in the chat about, is there a link? Is there this? Yes, she's on YouTube. Yes, you have only to Google her to find lots of performances. But hold your questions if you would. It would be so great because we're going to have questions at the end. So that's what I'm going to tell you next is what we're going to do here. Oops. So first of all, why are we doing this? We're doing this because writers think, I think beginning writers think the only place to get known is on the page, or these days on the screen. And those are two great medium for which I've written for. But there are everywhere opportunities for you to get up and do some live storytelling. For instance, here in Troy, New York, once a year, I run an evening called Brava, and it is live storytelling on the topic of our bras in our lives. Why do we do it? We do it because we raise bras for women in need. The women at my local shelter, turns out they had no bras, despite the fact that I had given all my business clothes there when I moved here so people could go on business interviews. I found out that they didn't have any underwear. So the price of admission to Brava is a bra with the tag still on. And we thought we'd get a few people the first night. We sold it out, and it's now going into its 8th year this year. In November here in Troy, New York, it is a wild night of storytelling on the role of the bras in our lives. But that's just one of hundreds of these venues that I know about. And I'm going to let Tricia explain to you, of course, during the course of this storytelling course today, about the benefit of telling your tale. But you're going to notice, you're going to start seeing lots of call for submissions. That's the phrase you want to look for in your town, locally, even online, for people who are inviting you to tell your tale on stage. So we're doing this because I want to broaden your palette of places to have your work be seen. Tricia, what have you got to add to that? What have you got in your neck of the woods, or venues that come to mind that people should be starting to include in their places to basically publish?
Well, and I'm just a big believer in if it's not existing, just do it yourself. So,
Mm,
if there's not a storytelling night in your town, then produce a storytelling night in your town. We have here locally, we have for a long time, we had a series called The Black Fly. I don't know if I'm from New Hampshire, black flies are
yes.
terrible. And so it's
Horrible.
called The Black Fly. It was a storytelling event that we had twice a year to raise money for a local performance hall. There's a group in there's the storytelling community is vast. The MOTH is, probably the best known, but it's everywhere in every community. There's a fabulous organization called the Story Collider, and that is all about stories about science. And, so you can find niche storytelling, it's just they're very well known nationally. There's everything locally. Just look for them.
Hmm.
People are waiting for story, and people. I was telling Marion before
Me
we got
earlier.
started is
Yeah.
that the storytelling audiences are the most wonderful audiences because they just want you to succeed. It's just a great
Yes.
environment. It's a great environment.
At Brava, we laugh, we cry, we sob together over
Hmm.
stories. The one rule I have is no sexualized stories. And boy, in 8 years of doing this, I have never heard the same story twice. You can have
Yeah.
25 my first bra stories, and they will not resemble each other at all. One, your
Yeah.
mother goes with you, one, your aunt goes with you, one, your mother is dead and can't go with you,
Yeah.
one, your mother refuses to go with you because she doesn't believe in training bras. They go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But we've got them, and
Yeah.
they're really, really fun. So I think if you Google storytelling venues and then you put your town or your city or your state or your area, you're going to be astonished. So good. That gives you the context for this. So
Well,
what we're
and
going to do,
also
yeah, go ahead.
it really helps you promote your work.
Yes.
It not only is it a good skill to have, but it can also help you promote your work. So that's an important thing.
And that's exactly it. It gets your name compounded out there online. And so people always ask me, I don't really understand, like, why am I supposed to get my name on the internet? Because then it's in Google, right? I can find you. I can
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
your YouTube recording of your story. I can locate you. It gets your name circulating. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the stage versus the page. We're going to talk about the basic elements of live storytelling. We're going to learn how to build, or we're going to, not going to build a whole story. We're going to talk about how you build a story, and we're going to talk about how to keep your story universal. So I'm really excited about these facets, and I don't know anyone better than Tricia to help us through them. And if the slides would stop jumping around, that would be nice. So, but they won't, because it's technology and it's the spring, and even my computer is excited about the return of the light. So it's just jumping around. Oh, well, anyway, stage to page. So Tricia, talk to me about stage to page. You gave me these little bullet points and I love them. So walk us through them and I'll kibitz in as needed.
Okay. Well, the first thing around going from the stage, from the page to the stage, basically, is you have more tools at your disposal. I can do with my eyebrow what would take me a very long time to craft a sentence that communicated that same thing. And so you have your nonverbal cues, you have your body, you have gestures, you have your voice, which can use with inflections and go up and down and pacing and timing. And it's just, there's a lot more at your disposal to be able to communicate what is happening in that story. For me, I'm a person who talks in gestures. I have no problem being in front of an audience. And so I like having all of these tools at my disposal to be able to really communicate what happened in a particular story. And the other thing is you can connect with the energy of the audience. I mean, when you're writing, it's you and the page. When you're telling a story on stage, it's a collaborative event. You are creating an experience with the audience. And there's a give and take that's happening. And there's a fantastic, I had this fantastic direction from Catherine Burns, who's the artistic director of the MOTH once. And when I first started telling, I only felt comfortable when people were laughing at my stories. And if there was, more poignant moments, I would blow right past them
Hmm.
because I felt uncomfortable with that silence. And Catherine said, Tricia, you have to stop. You have to lean into those silences.
Hmm.
And now what's so amazing is literally if you can land something and let it sit with the audience as they take it in, I think you could physically lean into that silence and not fall over. And it's this incredible exchange of energy. I get now more excited when I make people cry than when I make them laugh. But you have this. I'm like, yes, everyone is crying now. This was successful.
Good
But
day.
it's a great day. I made everyone cry. But it's really about, people in the audience want to be moved. And so
Yeah.
they're in it with you and you can feel it. You can really feel the energy of the audience. And you also get this immediate reaction. I mean, I've always heard that I don't know if it's a joke or the saying that says writing a book is like telling a joke and waiting to hear, waiting to see if they got the punchline 2 years later.
Hmm.
So if you're telling a story right away, is it working? Am I telling the story in a way that people are getting what I want them to get out of it? Is it
Right.
landing?
Hmm.
How do I feel when I tell it? Because I have learned so much on stage going, no, I don't want to hit those notes. I want to hit this other note here. This is what this is really about.
Hmm.
So, but it is something to get this immediate reaction. You don't have to wait for a long time and you can say,
Hmm.
oh, and it helps you shape and craft your tale.
I think that's really such a good wrap up of these 3 points. That's excellent. And the idea that you can shape and craft your tale. In other words, this is not a one-shot deal, people. This is one time to test it on the material, test the material on the audience, which is something I always recommend. Anyone who's studied with me knows that I recommend that. Write an op-ed if you've got a book that you want to sell. Write a
Hmm.
modern love
Hmm.
column for the New York Times if you've got a book you want to sell. You'll be amazed. If you write a well-placed piece, you're going to get some attention, usually from an agent or an editor or both. But here you've got this other experience, and that may happen too. There might be someone in the audience, who knows? But that's not the point. The point is, see where the audience reacts. And then if you're going to publish this piece, right, you've got this, you say, oh, they really wept at that moment. I got to dig into that deeper. So you get some response, which, you don't get from your family. I find even in my best moments at Thanksgiving, when I'm trying to really make everybody laugh, they're basically hungry and they're going to do anything I want them to do. If I've got the food in the kitchen, like, yeah, Ma, that's really funny. Come on, feed us. And that's not really that helpful to my storytelling, right, Tricia? That's not really.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing that's really interesting is the very first time I did that tell at the bitter end, I knew no one in the audience except my husband.
Oh.
Every time I had told that story before, it was pretty much loaded with people I knew. It was always a safe audience. I mean,
Mm-mm.
it was loaded with people I knew. And so when I went into the bitter end that time, I literally knew my husband. I'd
Mm-hmm.
never done this before. I was in New York. There were 300 people crammed into this, bar. And I'm like, well, here goes. I mean, it was a
Mm.
very different experience to see, is this going to fly with people who have no idea who I am?
Right. Who don't depend on me for food, sex, or shelter. Right.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge difference because
You
those
know,
people have to laugh.
yeah, and I mean, so it was very satisfying for me to go, okay, I'm onto something here.
Yes.
This,
Good.
I'm on to something. This
That's
is,
great.
I need to keep going in this direction.
That's perfect. So let's talk about the basic elements of live storytelling because you're the expert and I know you know this and I'm thrilled to get them from you. So go on and show us, starting with, let's just say you've got this story on you. You've got a piece of memoir or a book length memoir or an idea for memoir. And so where do you go from there, Tricia, to lead us through these ideas of yours?
Well, eh, so the first thing, and I mean, this is a savvy audience. These are folks who are writing memoirs. These are folks who have been working with you, and so this is a savvy group of people. So I may be saying things that you already know, but I'm going to, underscore them. There's a difference between an anecdote and a story,
Hmm.
and that difference is an internal change, and that's key. It can be a small change like I used to drink tea and now I drink coffee, or it can be I used to be a man and now I'm a woman. Somewhere in
Hmm.
between is the change, but we
Hmm.
we we have to have a change that happens to make it a story. So if I have a dear friend named Adam Wade who tells one of the most brilliant stories, Hoboken roast beef. And he could have said, I wasn't in a good mood. No, okay, I want to buy a quarter pound of roast beef and I'm great. I went to the store and bought the quarter pound of roast beef from the guy behind the deli counter. I still thought I was great. I came home, made a sandwich out of a quarter pound of roast beef, and I was still great. Nothing happened in that story because there was no internal change. In
Right.
his story, what he says is, I felt really bad about myself, and so I thought a quarter pound of roast beef would make me feel better. I went to the Hoboken ShopRite Deli, and I was mean to the guy behind the counter when I bought the quarter pound of roast beef. I came home, couldn't eat it because I felt so bad, and it took him on a journey of self-discovery. It was
Hmm.
this amazing story about roast beef, right?
Hmm.
So, but it has to be an internal change. That's what makes the difference. You have to have
Yes.
something, even if it's just the smallest shift in perspective, there has to be some kind of change that happens. And, I also, when I talk with people about stories, a lot of people are like, nothing's ever happened to me, so I don't have any story to tell. All of you know something has happened to you, or you wouldn't be writing a memoir.
Right.
But a lot of us think, well, the story only matters if it was a big story, like if it was life or death, or some sort of major happening. And some of the best stories are smaller moments. And
Yes.
when I tell a little story really quickly, I told the story that folks saw, how to draw a naked man on at the bitter end, and it was 5 minutes, and the moth said, we want you to come down and tell a longer version of this on a main stage in New York. And I'm like, that's great. And I'm thinking, I'm going to tell the best story ever. And I hop in my little Honda Fit driving down I-91 thinking, yay me, I'm just, this is going to be great. And it was just sort of this blend of arrogance and naivete. And I go into the rehearsal and I meet my other storytellers, and one is an international scientist who was going to tell a story about studying the jumping spider in Sri Lanka during a coup when corpses were floating down the river.
Yeah.
Another person had just like recovered from his cocaine addiction and was going to was in a shipwreck and had to drink his own urine to survive. Right. I
Hmm.
went to art school. Like I'm going, why am I even on this stage? Like this. So I went to Catherine Burns, the artistic director, and I was like, okay, you've made a huge mistake. I have no business being on the stage. And she said, first of all, do you think we would let you on the stage if we didn't think you were ready? And secondly, not all stories are extreme, but they need to be told.
Mm.
And that was the best advice I've ever
That's a
gotten.
tattoo right there that we all need to get, or
Yeah.
like needle pointed onto a chair anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
I mean, it's so I've told stories about the Christmas ornament my father made for me. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
these small, lovely stories. I mean, Marion, I think I told you I went through the Memoir Project because I love that book so much. I sort of clutch it to my chest half the time.
Oh,
And there are three. And so for all of you out there, if you have your memoir or parts of your memoir, look at scenes that might make a good story. So in Marion's The Memoir Project, she's got that great scene when she's in the car with her daughter who announces that she wants to have a penis. It is a brilliant 5 to 6 minute story that you can
Oh.
flesh out about what it's like to be a mother and what goes through your head when that conversation's happen, or when you get your mother's ashes in the mail, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful opportunity for a story. And of course, my favorite story in that book, which is the scene in the church service where the woman who is, crippled and riddled with Alzheimer's suddenly comes to life and sings "How Great Thou Art." I mean, you can't get through that without, whimpering. So, but none of those are huge moments. None of those are like, oh, they're
Right.
smaller and quieter and
Thank
um,
you. Oh,
and
that's so
that could
nice.
be really wonderful stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to remember, people want to be moved. That's what they want out of a story. They want to be moved in
Yep.
some way or the other. And so there's what happens in your story and what it's really about. Like in How to Draw a Naked Man, what happened in the story was I was a burnout executive, unhappy in my job. I went to art school. I drew from the nude model. I realized I was an artist. That's what happened. What the story was really about was about breaking free from conventional expectations. And so
Yes.
that's what it's about. And so
Yes.
that's where we start. That's how we start then crafting the stories that we want to tell.
And so do you have to know what the story is about, or can you start writing it because there's action? People always ask me this. They love and hate my little story algorithm that I teach people. It's about X as illustrated by Y to be told in a Z. I always say any order. Just start making some notes. Just write
Yeah. Oh,
something
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah. You may
So,
not know what the theme is until after you've written the story,
right.
and then you
Such
can go back and really start fine tuning it.
Yeah, then you point it up, like they say in chimney making. I always have
Yeah.
wondered what they're pointing at, up to. It's like, okay, boys, go point it up. But I think it's the same thing in storytelling. So
Yeah.
we've got the parts of a story. And so walk us through these, if you would, please.
Well, I'll do that quickly here because we've got slides afterwards that are more detailed, but it's theme. It's
Okay,
what we just
I'll go
talked
to the
about.
next one. So here we go.
Oh, no,
Identify your theme.
go back
Go,
real quick. Go
go back.
back real quick. I'm sorry. I made you go too fast. There's theme, and then there's stakes. We have to know what can be won and what can be lost in a story, right?
Hmm.
If there's no stakes, there's no story.
Yep.
So we have to be really clear of what those are. And then there's the narrative arc, like who were you in point A and who were you at point B, right? So
Yes.
it's really the theme, the stakes, and the narrative arc are the three things you want to be thinking about when you craft. I mean, you think about these when you're writing your memoir, but you're also thinking about this when you're crafting a shorter story.
Hmm. Perfect. So let's talk about identifying your theme. How do you do this, and why do you do it? And walk us through these wonderful bullet points.
Well, it is and we're going to, if you don't like Marion's algorithm, sorry, because it's the exact same thing. So we think about, for my Naked Man story, it's about breaking free from expectations as illustrated by my art school experience drawing from the nude model as told in a MOTH story, right?
Hmm.
That's how that's going to go. And so once I know what that story is about, and again, I may not figure it out right off the bat. It may take me a while to figure out what that story is about. I'm going to use that as my thematic through line. It's going to be
Hmm.
my editing tool. So whatever element I put in, whatever dialogue I use, whatever character I use, it's going to come from that theme. So if you've listened to the story, which is about me drawing from a nude model, the naked man, for the first time, the key elements there are, I set it up where, I say, I was raised from the South. There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and anything else, the wrong way is if you did something different, right? And so I'm sitting in this art school, classroom for the first time. And so the dialogue with that key first teacher is key because she's saying there's no right way to make art and there's no wrong way to make art.
Hmm.
We're going to focus on process and not the end result. There are no grades. I mean, that dialogue is just like makes me lose my mind, but it's a key. I know. I was like, what are you saying? I can't
What do you
overachieve.
mean?
It's horrible, you know. And so, but I was very thoughtful. There was a lot that got spoken in that class that day, but that was the dialogue that was key to underscore this theme of breaking free from convention.
Absolutely.
Um, there's, I say, I talk about the people in the classroom with me, and then I say, it's my first day of art school. I try my best to look artsy to fit in, but even though I'm not wearing pearls, they are still emblazoned on my chest, right?
Absolutely.
So saying that, you can see it's like I am such a fish out of water here. I
Mm,
mean, I'm just such a fish out of water. So I had to include like the other characters that are key are obviously the naked man, this nude model, another instructor who's helpful. There's another mature student who is she's way more of an artist than I am. And so I had to be thoughtful about who I picked. And we all know there's more than one way to tell a story, right? You can have I mean, I could have said, this story could have been told from my sister was an artist and I've always adored my sister and I want to be just like her. If
hmm
that was what this was about, my relationship with my sister, everything I picked would have been completely different. But
Yes.
this was about breaking free from convention. And so I
Yes.
chose the elements that fit that theme.
And that's what interested you. And that's the thing. There is absolutely positively every way to tell every story. You can dolly around any event in your life and do a 360 and choose
Yep.
all the different ways to look at it. You can stand over an open grave of somebody you loved and still have 25 different ways to tell that tale, right? But
Yep.
you've
Yep.
got to figure out what interests you. Well, what
Yeah.
interests her is the breaking free thing, the
Yeah.
transcendence of
Yeah.
her family of origin.
Yep.
And that's really wonderful. I really appreciate you bringing that up. So what else in here do we need to know before we move on to our next
The
bullet
last
point?
one is, that Blaise Pascal quote, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. Um,
Yes.
it takes it it takes time. This is a very
Yes.
efficient way to tell. You have to be really efficient. I
Yep.
think I think a 5-minute story is really 1,000 words,
hmm
versus a 60,000 word book. So you have to be really thoughtful. So just take the time, to write that shorter letter, to really be thoughtful about what you're putting in and taking out.
Absolutely. I used to do those crazy essays for National Public Radio's All Things Considered. They were 615 words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, took me 3 weeks to write my first one, working on
Yeah.
it 8 hours a day. And it was the 47th draft I sent to NPR.
Wow.
47th. But why? It had to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Or as close
Yeah.
to perfect.
There's no room for
No,
fluff.
no, no.
Um, and when you set the stakes, yeah, again, the stakes are key, right? If we don't think anything is going to be won or lost, we're not interested, right? We're
Yep.
not interested. And so you want to create a sense of urgency. And so for me, it's very strange to it's very strange to critique my own story, but it was fun to kind of go back and go, oh, I did that right. Full disclosure, when I got on stage at the bitter end, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's give it a shot. And now when I look back, it's like, oh, I did some things right. I could have done some things better, but I've been doing this now for well over 10 years and I've gotten pretty good at it. But so one of the things that worked in that story is I keep creating this sense of urgency, right? So, we know right off the bat I'm sort of over my head in that I'm saying, she says there's no right way, there's no wrong way. We're going to focus on process, not product. There's no grades, and I completely freak out. And then I sort of settle. I mean, I was still to this day, I can remember what
Just
that
love
felt like.
that.
And then then it feels kind of good. I kind of sort of get used to it, so I sort of settle in. I feel good. And then they bring in the nude model, and like, today we're going to draw gesture drawings, very fast drawings, about 45-second poses, and we're going to draw the energy and the movement and the essence of the figure. And I'm like, what the hell is essence and how do I draw it? And so I freak out again, right? And I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this. And so one more time the audience is going, is she going to be able to pull this off, right?
You got a
And
snort out of me there. That's just hard to do, but I just I went to girls' school too, so I got the pearls also, and I totally get what it takes to get the pearls off. So go ahead. Sorry.
There you go, you know? And so then I like go snap out of it, like, and just start doing something. So I'm trying to do something and all I can do is stick figures. Like it's getting worse and worse as it goes on. And then an instructor comes over and talks me off the ledge.
Hmm.
And I'm able to create, you know, this drawing. And so, but I have led the listeners through this who are going, is she going to be able to pull this off? Is she going to be able to stay in the room? Is she going to take off? You know, what is she going to do? Because it's anybody's guess. I'm so freaked out.
Hmm.
So you
Yes,
just want to keep that, you want to keep building that tension as you go through.
absolutely. Right. And then you
Mira,
create a narrative arc. Yeah.
yeah, who are you at the beginning? Who are you at the end? It's really about your emotional journey. I told a story once for the Moth about the love story I had with my husband over in Ireland. And I told the story, and they were like, yeah, Tricia, we don't really care where you were living in Ireland. Where were you emotionally? Because I'm like, and then I lived here, and
Yeah.
then I lived there. So it's really about, you know, where how are you transforming yourself and saying why that matters. And in my case, you know, I went from being very unhappy in my job to basically feeling like I could do anything because
Mm.
I'd drawn the naked man.
The naked man. Absolutely. That naked man. I'm so grateful to that naked man. It's the naked man that brought us together. And I love that.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to him. I mean, this poor guy, I've talked about him so much. I wonder if he knows that it was him.
All right. So we want to make it real, right?
Yeah, you know, you do. And this is really about building your story's world. And this is one thing if I could go back and tell that story again, I would put more of the details of what the room looked like that I was in, you know, sort of like what I was smelling, what I was, you know, what I was hearing. I mean, you just want to build that world, right? So there's a guy named Tim Manley who tells a great story called Teacher Talent Show. And he says, you know, he doesn't say, my principal was scary. He's a English teacher at a New York high school. He doesn't say my principal was scary. He says my principal was a former drummer for a punk rock band. He had full-length sleeve tattoos. He was perpetually frowning. You know, so you get this picture of what this principal looked like other than just saying he was a scary guy. You
Right.
know, we get real, so we really want to do, and you talk about this as well, show versus tell. Like, show us, you know, don't say I was nervous, say the sweat was pouring all the way down my back and you could see it come through the shirt. You know, I mean,
Yep.
just whatever it is, let us, you know, give us real details. And all of those details need to feed the story's narrative arc. Like everything, if I was sitting, if I was in the How to Draw Naked Man and I started talking about what was happening outside, it has nothing to do with what's happening. You know, it may be really interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I did my one woman show for the first time in 4 years last year, and I shaved 8 minutes off of it because I'm like, why do I have all these details in here that have nothing to do with the story?
Yep.
Just got rid of them. And so
Yep.
you just want to make sure that every single detail moves that story forward. And I
Yes.
always use the present tense because
Yes.
then you're in it. You know,
Yep.
I mean, I can set it up with a little bit of, you know, you can set something up with a little bit of past tense stuff, which you know, when I started out my stories, when you know, growing up in the South, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, whatever. But I get into the present tense because it's
Yes.
just more immediate.
Perfect. Perfect example. So tell the truth. Absolutely. Tell the truth. And
Yeah.
what is that truth made up of there, Tricia?
Well, you know, you really want to show your vulnerability. Like we say at the
Yep.
Moth all the time, it's great that you climbed Mount Everest, but what we're really interested in is the moment that you wanted to turn back. Like
Yes.
that's where the story is. It's not like I
Yes.
am so great. I mean, who needs to hear that, right?
Never. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no one's interested in that. So you really want to dwell in the difficulty. Like what were the questions you were asking? Like what was happening? You know, so show us where it was hard because
Right.
you know, it really vulnerability is the key to a good story. And vulnerability is the key to being a good leader also, by the way. So
Yep.
if you're in another capacity wanting to tell stories, it's, you know, it's vulnerability is the key. And you want to use your voice. I mean, I'm a particularly, I mean, I like to think I'm a funny person. If I'm telling a dark story, there's going to be humor in that because that's just the only way I can navigate things. I had a
Hmm.
friend say to me that I cook things in comedy so people can eat it. So yeah, so I mean, I'm talking about like divorce and infidelity and all kinds of depression, and but it's funny. That's the way it's going to come out of me.
Yep.
But if you're quiet, you know, just be quiet when you tell your story. You,
Hmm.
you, don't be something that you're not, because
Hmm.
it'll just be too hard for you and it
Yes.
won't work. And, I've seen beautiful stories be told by people who were quiet and thoughtful and poignant. And, so you just want to be who you are. I have only in all the years I've been teaching storytelling, which is well over a decade at this point, heard one person who I knew was lying, and it wasn't intentional. I think he just felt like the story would be better if he really exaggerated it,
Hmm.
but it came through. And so the
Hmm.
truth has an energy to it. So
Lovely.
people
I
will
love that
know.
phrase. The truth has
Yeah,
an energy to it. That's
it does.
gorgeous.
It
Good.
does. And you want to be as specific as you can, because I know it's counterintuitive, but it makes your story more universal. So, I've had people come up to me when they hear my show. Um, I have this point where I give all the shoulds of growing up, right? All of the shoulds I had as a Southern woman growing up. And one of my most phenomenal one was an Egyptian professor of international studies at a Southern university who was Muslim said, "Yeah, everything about your story resonated with me." I'm like,
Oh.
"Okay, work with me here." I'm a white woman from the South who's a Christian. So what do we
Yeah.
what do we got going on here? But it was
Yeah.
just because it was so specific. He
Right.
could he could put all of the constraints he had growing up in his
The
world.
prescribed, yeah, there's prescriptions of behavior.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
So
he was
how
like
about the
every
delivery?
movie. Know your first and last line like a gymnast. You want to, I mean, when I do my stories, I write my story out just because I'm visual. I have to have it in my head. Then I toss it and I work from an outline,
Hmm.
and I know my first line, and I end it as strongly as I can. And you really want to show your passion too. I mean, I worked with this one woman. She was gay and she had been in recovery, and she was trying to tell a story about being her coming out story, which just didn't land. And then she was trying to tell her story about her recovery, which also didn't land. And she wasn't excited about either one of those. I'm like, just because you're gay and you're in recovery doesn't mean you have to tell those stories.
Right.
I said, the one thing that's always come through is you talk about how your mother always wanted you to lose weight, and
Yeah.
that she stepped into it, and it was this amazing story because she was
Oh,
passionate about it and it
yeah.
mattered to her. And
Yes.
so if you're not excited about it, nobody else is going to be excited about it. You're
That's
just
right.
not. The difference between telling a story and a performance is you can mess up. I mean, you can say, "Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you X, Y." I mean, this is like you're at the dining room table.
Hmm.
This is what a successful story is you get up on a stage, you're behind a mic, but really you're at the dining room table and you're telling a story. So it doesn't have to be perfect, and every single word is perfectly articulated, and I mean you want to be yourself telling a story, right?
Yep.
And Marion, you use a great line in your book, The Memoir Project, to nudge yourself off stage, right? And I loved that line because I was raised never to draw attention to myself. Obviously, that did not work, but
Failed.
it failed. But for a lot of years, it did. And if it feels self-indulgent writing a memoir, it can feel even more self-indulgent standing on a stage.
Right.
But if you are the illustration of a universal theme, it is
Hmm.
not about you, it's about this universal theme, then you're nudged off the stage. And
Beautiful.
it's you're really serving people. You're serving people.
Right. So people can come and work with you, and that's why I want to introduce. I want to give them give people this wonderful class, this short class. But I also want people to understand that you can come in and meet Tricia, work with Tricia, work one-on-one with her, that you have taught for many years,
Mm.
and you work one-on-one with other people's materials to get people on stage. And the coaching is a really important piece of this. So I want to show people where you can reach Tricia, and I'm going to put into the chat this wonderful, why don't you tell them what it is that this free guide is that they're getting now in the URL. Go look in the chat, everybody, and grab that link. and why don't you tell them what it is, and then we're going to take some questions. So get ready to give us like questions.
Yeah,
But go ahead and introduce
it's
it.
a storytelling guide. It just gives you three kind of reviews those three key elements to story: the um, uh, theme, stakes, and narrative arc. So you can get kind of have that more in your head. There's also a bonus, the manifesto for the Time to Be Timid, No Time to Be Timid movement that we're starting. But it'll just keep you grounded and give you some examples of other stories that you can look at and see how other storytellers have done it as well. But if you just go to my website, you'll get me.
Great.
And whatever is out there to offer. There's several things that are coming up that would allow me to help you coach with stories. So that's great.
Yeah, so here's all these wonderful ways to reach her. TriciaRoseBurt.com, where you can subscribe to her email list. You can download the free storytelling guide. You can sign up for one-on-one coaching. You can follow on social media, Tricia Rose Burt, and receive updates because of the No Time to Be Timid offerings are going to be magnificent. So I've
Yeah,
got some
yeah.
questions here
Oh,
for
good.
you.
Okay, yeah, go.
Yeah, so you've got a couple of really big fans here. Sana sends her regards. You love her Moth Story Slams. And Sana also says this makes me think of how David Sedaris tests out his material with live audience, then uses the immediate reaction to shape and craft his stories.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Thank you,
exactly right.
Sana. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle wants to know if this is available to view after the presentation. Yes, you should be receiving a copy of this recording. And Sana also remarks on you are the illustration of a universal theme, and it's about serving people. That is so beautiful. That is absolutely wonderful. So I know there was one earlier where my wonderful friend who's calling from Karachi, Pakistan, asked us a question. Oh, wanted to know if you were on YouTube, and yes, she is. Absolutely. So go and look in YouTube for Maliha. Go and look in YouTube for Tricia.
And you can
Is there
also just
anything
go to if you go to the website, all of those videos are on the website.
perfect? So
Yeah, if you
Tricia
go to my
wrote, here's
website,
the
yeah.
TriciaRoseBurt.com. Absolutely. So Nancy asks, are Moth Project stories always told with such humor as you used so naturally?
No. So a lot of them are, but I mean, I've shared this stage with some Moth storytellers and gone, oh my word. I mean, some of them are just gripping and wrenching. Some of them are, I mean, it's all over the map. It's all
Right.
over the map. I mean, again, it's all about being moved by the story. Some do it through humor, some do it through, you know, just just depending on what the experience is, but
Right.
they're not all funny. There's a wide range of stories on them off.
And I think that's what's beautiful about this whole live storytelling moment that we're in right now. A couple of months ago on Cordy, my podcast, I interviewed Megan Falley, who's a spoken word poet, and she really broadened my horizons about the numbers of places in this country alone where you can do spoken word poetry, and I've now watched and really gotten addicted to her performances and the performances of her partner Andrea Gibson, who's amazing. And then that's also got me thinking about all the places in this country you can do this live storytelling. So again, if you'd all just go and have a look in Google live storytelling events or call for submissions live storytelling, and then put in your town or your state or your county or whatever, I think you're going to really find that there's an awful lot of call for this. And
Yeah,
then you got to go do it, right? You
yeah,
got to go. But I
yeah.
think,
And I mean, again, they're the safest audiences. They
yeah,
really are. It's people who, it's not like, good Lord, my hat goes off to Ross. It's not like people who sit in the audience and go, you have to make me laugh now. It's people who are
I
sitting in
paid
the
for
audience
this.
and say, what am I going to hear now? Like they're just excited to hear what comes out.
Yes, yes. So here's one of my favorite writers asking a question, Laura Davis. Hi, Laura. It's so nice to see you here. Laura's somebody I interviewed on our podcast. Laura has a brand new memoir out that's breathtaking. And so Laura asks, do you avoid memorizing your stories? Can you say more about the difference between telling and performing? It seems like you have only 5 minutes. You wouldn't want to miss your punchline.
Yeah, I would strongly encourage you not to memorize your story. And here's why. then you're going to be worried about whether or not you said the right word, or I mean, again, what I do is I write my story and then I put it in an outline form and I get rid of the written version and I work off the outline, because there's going to be some transitions that I want to make sure I have. There's going to be some beats I want to make sure I hit, but I want to have the flexibility to not freak out if if I got a word, I decided to use a different word than I did in the memorized version, or you just have more flexibility. It's easier. It's a nicer thing to do to yourself, to not feel like you have to memorize something.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, you can't forget your story because you lived it. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Oh, I
you
love
can't,
that.
you lived it, so you can't
Yeah,
forget it, right?
right. Right. And when you get up there, do you actually have the outline with you, or is it
No, no
no?
notes, no notes, no
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
notes. And some,
Cool.
there are some storytelling organizations, and I went to a couple in Nashville where they actually do read, which is a certain way to do it. I think it's more more vulnerable, and in the best sense of the word, just to get up there and tell a story with no notes.
Hmm. Yeah, everyone will have a different parameters. So
Yeah. Yeah.
at the Brava, we allow people to read it. Absolutely. We also have poets. We have people who have done songs about their bras. Oh dear God! And really, you can get up and read it. You can get up and perform it. It's up to you.
Yeah, it's
Not
really
everybody.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to the venue. So Sana asks, how do you, oops, let's see. She asks, what are your ways of getting over stage fright? What do you do before, during, and after your storytelling to take care of yourself?
Oh,
Such a nice question. Such a lovely, loving question. I love that.
yeah. Well, um, you always want to be rested. Sleep is a really good thing. So I always try to make sure I'm rested. I am always try to make sure that I am quiet before I go on stage. Um, and, just it's all your basic stuff, just, your breathing, your quiet, your whatever it works for you to get you grounded and centered. Quite often, I just like to have my feet on the ground. I may do some yoga poses that feel good, and just to kind of make sure I'm present,
Hmm.
particularly if I'm telling a story that I've told before. I
Hmm.
want to make it sound like I'm telling the story for the first time. And
Great.
so yeah, just, with all the, making sure you're well rested, that you're well fed, that you're not doing something stressful before you get on the stage. And, you know, that's kind of the best advice. And also to practice, because if
Hmm.
it's in your DNA, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's
You're
not going to fail you. That's the thing that I find fascinating, is that it's in there. That
yeah,
knowledge that you've got your story on you and it's in there. And the people really are there to receive it. There, it's
they
not,
are. I mean, you're
I
giving
think,
people a gift. You're giving
yes,
people a gift.
yes. You're giving people the gift of humanity. We're sharing our humanity with one another. And Sana says, thank you,
Absolutely.
Tricia. Love your answer. That's so sweet. So Laura asks, do stories have to have a triumphant or uplifting ending?
No, no. Your shift may be, I started out great and then I realized, you know what? Things are even worse. I mean, it doesn't have to be a happy ending.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
right.
There just
But it
has to
has to
be a
have
change.
transcendence. It has to
Yeah.
have, you can lose in the game of life, but you can still win in the awareness that what you were pursuing had no value, right? That's
Yeah.
what's so interesting about a good story, is what is the transcendent shift, right?
Yeah. So it does not have to all be tied up in a happy bow at the end, because uh, uh, unless I'm leading a different life than the rest of you, it does not always turn out with a happy bow at the end. So
I don't trust the happy bow. I love stories of partial recovery. I
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm believing when somebody says to me, well, I'm not believing stories that say, and then I got sober, and then I found God, and now I'm great. And
Yeah.
I always say, no, tell me how you tucked God in your back pocket, how you tucked grief in your back pocket. I'm not saying that we don't have achievements. I'm just saying that it doesn't vanquish everything.
Yeah.
It's a heighten and add experience, but you're still carrying the knowledge that you once really did blow up your whole life. And
Yeah.
this is where you got from there. So I use partial recovery as kind of my guiding mantra in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Valerie asks, how often do you tell it to others to get their input, sorry, before going on stage? Or is it necessary?
It isn't even necessary. I mean, when I do workshops with the, MOTH, and I travel around, or even with the workshops I do myself, I'll do what I just did for y'all and give people 5 minutes to come up with a story and then get them up to have them tell it. I mean, it's that fast.
Boop.
And so, that's in the down and dirty, get on stage and tell it. Now, is it their final draft? No, it's their first draft. They got up there and they said it, right? But it's your comfort level. Tell it to as many people as you want until you feel comfortable getting on stage. Just don't use that as a procrastination technique, So run it past some folks,
Writers?
see how it feels.
Procrastinators? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, throw yourself into it, because
Hmm.
it's just invigorating, first of all. Not for everybody. It is for me, but that's how I'm wound up.
Hmm.
Is it's a very invigorating experience for me. But get some good feedback from folks and then get on a stage. And again, if you don't have a stage in your community, say, I'm having a bunch of people over to come tell stories. Come over and tell a story.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. I have to tell you, starting Brava was started after I received a letter from my local YWCA that also is a shelter, and they said they asked for Christmas gifts for a family, and when I said yes, of course, and the woman whose family I was buying the gifts for, she filled out a form saying, this is my children need jackets and they each need one toy and all I want is a bra. And then it wrote in her handwriting, it said, I don't have any. And I said, what is this? What, I don't understand. And I
Oh,
called the Y and
wow.
said, I don't get this. Why don't you have any bras? I gave you, as I said before, all my business clothes. And she said, well, we can't give used underwear to people. And we don't have the funds to raise bras. And because I'm me and completely, insane, I said, I'm going to go raise you some bras, and hung up the phone and thought, what, how are you, what, and we
But it's
started this
perfect. It's
simple,
perfect.
that's how we started it, literally. And as I said, the first time we expected 10 people to come, it was standing room only, and it's been standing room every year, and it's become the thing in Troy, New York. It's Brava, and we love it, and we bring the
Yeah,
house down every year. That's how you start. You
yeah,
say,
if you
if you
just
want to do
do it.
good, make it a fundraiser, right? Make it a damn fundraiser, charge a few dollars, and get someplace to donate the space. The art center donated the space, and now we've got a thing that people come from. We've got one writer who drives from Pennsylvania every year, and another one who flies in for it, because it's still competitive, and you'll get the notice when we're taking the submissions, everybody. But make it something that you do, and keep the stories moving. We've only got a few minutes left today. Anybody else have any questions before I get to give Tricia the biggest virtual hug anybody ever got, for being here and being so wonderful, Tricia. This is perfect and so generous and
Oh,
so
I just
appreciated.
love it so much. And I hope, if you go to my website to take there's a storytelling class just for y'all out there. I mean, on my website, it's storytelling 1 and storytelling 2. Y'all don't have to do storytelling 1. You can go straight to storytelling 2 because we just did storytelling 1. And there's a class on April 14th. And if you want to sign up for that, that's great. And you have to come with a story that you've already written. So there's a deadline for you there. Um,
I
yeah,
just
there's
really like it, Tricia, that you're still that super overachiever. It's like, skip the first class, go right to the second one.
it's just
That's
pitiful. It's
insane.
so pitiful. If you really want to overachieve, I'm giving a retreat April 6th to the 8th. You can really see the overachieving happening there,
Yeah.
which you might enjoy as well. So that's on the website. But yeah,
So
I
you've
just
got a
encourage,
retreat. Let me just
yeah,
recap this. You have a retreat they can join. How long is the retreat?
it's April 6th through the 8th. Story is a big part of that retreat, but we also talk about your creative journey and where you are on that. And there's a couple spaces left. It's really an invitation only thing for women. It's a really magical 3 days. So if
Oh,
that's something that interests you, please reach out to me. My
okay.
email, it's on the website. You can contact me. That, and then the April 14th class, and the one-on-one coaching, which I love to do. And
And where is the retreat, Tricia? Where does it physically
it's
take
in
place?
Peterborough, New Hampshire.
New
It's in
Hampshire.
the, yeah, I'm in New Hampshire. It's the next town over.
Hmm.
It is a dreamy inn the dreamiest of dreamy ends. And so it's a really lovely creative sanctuary for like, we start on Wednesday at 5 and on Friday at noon. Wednesday is all about storytelling. We tell stories that night and really focus on
Oh,
that. And then
I'm
you
getting
story is really a
getting on
vessel.
my fuzzy slippers and coming up. That's all there is to that.
Man, Marion, I would love it.
Oh,
I
that
would
sounds
love it if you
wonderful.
came.
That sounds wonderful. So you've got a retreat, you've got classes, you've got one-on-one coaching. Everybody go, certainly, please go to that link and watch How to Draw a Naked Man. You will never be the same after it. Thank you, Tricia. I love
Oh,
you. I'm
Marion, so
so
much fun.
grateful.
Thank you so much. You know, you are kind of my hero in so many ways. So it was
Oh,
just a real honor to be on this program.
well, the honor is mutual. Love to everybody. Stay safe, write well, stay in touch. Come and see us, and we'll see you again next month for another in this series. Thanks, everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.